Today, we're getting into something really, really interesting. How our bodies, fight back against chronic diseases, especially cancer.
Uh-huh. And we're leaning on the insights of Dr. William Lai. He's a Harvard-trained physician, scientist, and he has some perspectives that honestly made me rethink a few things.
Definitely. We're looking at a YouTube discussion he had. It was on the Diary of a CEO channel.
Right. The video titled, "The Chronic Disease Expert. We Can Now Reverse Stage 4 Cancer." This is feeding your cancer cells. Quite a title.
It is. So our mission here, for you listening, is to pull out the key stuff from that conversation. We're talking like surprising facts about cancer itself.
The power of our own body's defenses, which is huge.
How diet and lifestyle really play into that, and, actual things you might consider doing to boost your long-term health without getting bogged down in all the super technical medical speak.
Exactly. Keeping it practical.
Okay, so let's dive in. Dr. Lee kicks off with this really optimistic idea. He's seen patients go from stage 4 cancer to stage 0 remission. What's behind that hope?
Well, what's really central to his whole approach is this focus on what our bodies are already doing, constantly, kind of under the radar, to fight cancer from the very start.
Okay.
He drops this fact that, honestly, sounds pretty scary at first. Every day, something like 10,000 microscopic cancers form in our bodies.
10,000 every single day.
Yep. Just from, the sheer number of cells dividing 40 trillion cells, constantly making copies, errors happen.
Okay, well, that sounds bad. Why aren't we all riddled with cancer then?
Right. And that's exactly Dr. Lee's point. That's where the good news comes in. He says we have these amazing hardwired health defense systems.
Like internal bodyguards?
Sort of, yeah. He compares it to like police cruisers patrolling a quiet neighborhood. They're constantly looking for these tiny little microscopic problems, these initial cancer cells, and just taking them out, eliminating them before they can cause trouble.
Okay. So these systems are the reason we're generally okay. Cancer only becomes a real threat when those defenses slip up, when they miss something.
Precisely. When those systems are maybe weakened or overwhelmed or just fail to spot one of these microscopic clusters, that's when it gets a chance to grow.
And it grows fast.
It can. He gives this example. A tumor that's only 1 centimeter across, like barely something you could feel already, contains about 1 billion cancer cells.
1 billion, from potentially just one missed microscopic start.
It shows how quickly things can escalate when those defenses aren't working perfectly. That initial tiny problem just balloons.
Okay, so these defense systems are absolutely critical. What are they specifically? What does Dr. Lin highlight?
He focuses on a few key ones. First, there's the immune system. That's the one most of us know about, right?
Yeah, fighting off infections and stuff.
Exactly. And we know things like good food, exercise, lifestyle choices. They can boost our immunity. A strong immune system is key for wiping out those early cancer cells.
Makes sense. And the second one, angiogenesis.
Angiogenesis? Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's actually Dr. Lee's main area of research. It's basically our body's ability to grow and control blood vessels.
Blood vessels. Okay. Why is that important for cancer?
Well, healthy tissues need blood vessels for nutrients and oxygen, right?
Yeah.
The body needs to grow them properly. But here's the thing. Cancers are smart, or, well, insidious. They can actually trick the body into growing new blood vessels directly to them.
So they hijack the system to feed themselves.
Exactly. They need that blood supply to grow beyond a microscopic size. And it's incredibly effective. Remember that 1 centimeter tumor with 1 billion cells?
Yeah.
Dr. Lee says it's being fed by roughly 100 million blood vessels.
100 million, just for that small tumor.
And get this. Lab studies showed that if just a single tiny blood vessel connects to a microscopic tumor, that tumor can grow 16,000 times bigger in just 2 weeks.
16,000 times?
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing and terrifying.
It really highlights how crucial controlling that blood supply, controlling angiogenesis is.
So how do we influence it? Can we, stop the bad blood vessel growth but keep the good?
That's the really hopeful part of his message. He says, yes, we absolutely can influence it. And a big way is through food. Certain foods contain natural compounds that are anti-angiogenic.
Meaning they stop blood vessel growth.
They help regulate it. They essentially help prevent the body from growing those blood vessels that would feed a cancer. He mentions things like coffee and tea as examples.
Coffee and tea? Really?
Yeah, common stuff. But on the flip side, He warns that unhealthy diets, lots of processed foods and whatnot, can actually encourage the wrong kind of blood vessel growth, the kind that fuels cancers.
Okay, so it's a double-edged sword. We need to add the good stuff, but also avoid the things that weaken these defenses. He called it taking your shields down.
Right. Let's talk about those factors. Diet-wise, he mentioned excess sodium. What's the problem there? We know too much salt isn't great, but specifically for these defenses.
Well, yeah, we hear about blood pressure, but Dr. Lee points out it actually speeds up cellular aging. And importantly for this discussion, it directly harms that angiogenesis system. It messes with the body's ability to control those blood vessels properly.
Especially worrying given how much sodium is hidden in restaurant food and processed meals.
Totally. Then there's sugar. He was careful to distinguish between added sugar and sugar in fruit.
Yeah, that's a key distinction. He's talking about the added sugars, the stuff in sodas, candy, baked goods, not the natural sugar you get with fiber and nutrients in a piece of fruit.
So what's the damage from the added stuff?
High intake leads to these big spikes in blood sugar. Your body's metabolism has to work overtime to deal with it, constantly trying to regulate things. Over time, that just wears the system down, leads to dysfunction.
Okay. And alcohol. He sounded pretty blunt about alcohol.
He really was. He called it a universal toxin. Doesn't matter if it's wine, beer, spirits. Even in moderation, he says it causes damage. He used this analogy of like little dings on the windshield of your health defenses. Yeah, like tiny chips. Maybe one or two occasionally. The body can repair it. But regular excessive drinking, that's like cracking the whole windshield. It significantly compromises those defenses.
Got it. And ultra-processed foods were on his list, too. Seems like a catch-all category.
It is pretty broad, but think about what's usually in them. Often high sodium, high added sugars, unhealthy fats, low fiber, low nutrients. Basically, they bundle up a lot of the dietary problems we've just talked about. They generally work against our health defenses rather than supporting them.
Makes sense. Okay, shifting from diet to lifestyle. Stress. We all have it. How does it actually impact these defense systems we need?
Stress is a big one, with really wide-ranging effects. Dr. Lee explains it directly suppresses your immune system, so right there, you're more vulnerable.
Okay.
But it also raises blood pressure, messes with hormones that influence circulation and angiogenesis, and can even introduce errors when your DNA is copying itself. Now, a little bit of short-term stress can be okay, even helpful. But that chronic, ongoing, unabated stress, that's what really weakens the shield. It takes a toll.
In sleep. We know it's important, but what's the specific connection Dr. Lee makes to these defenses?
Sleep is fascinating because it's not just downtime. It's when your body does major repair work. Dr. Lee highlights the glymphatic system, kind of like the brain's waste disposal unit. It's most active during deep REM sleep.
So if you don't get enough good sleep,
that waste removal process gets impaired. Toxins can build up, leading to brain fog, poor decision-making, maybe reaching for unhealthy food. Plus, the body's overall repair, renewal, and regeneration processes suffer. And he also mentioned deep sleep is important for burning fat efficiently overnight.
Man, it really sounds like we're these complex systems constantly trying to maintain balance against all these challenges.
That's a great way to put it.
Which makes the news about early onset cancer even more concerning. Dr. Lee mentioned a big jump globally in cancers hitting younger people, 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah, that's a really worrying trend. He cited figures around an 80% rise between 1990 and 2019 for cancers like breast, colorectal, and others in that younger age group.
Why? Any ideas what's driving that?
It's likely complex, but Dr. Lai suggests it's probably a combination of things. Maybe increased exposure to environmental harms, coupled with the potential weakening of our natural health defenses for various reasons we've been discussing.
And speaking of environmental harms, he spent a surprising amount of time talking about microplastics.
Yeah, that really stood out. It's this relatively new area of concern that we're just trying to understand the full impact of.
How are we getting exposed?
Mostly through plastics, touching our food and drinks, plastic containers, packaging, bottles, and these tiny particles break off and we ingest them.
And they just stay in us.
It seems so. He talked about studies finding microplastic accumulation in, pretty much everywhere. The brain.
He said something like the equivalent of a plastic picnic spoon's worth in the average brain.
Yeah, unsettling image, right? Also found in the bloodstream, he mentioned a study linking particles in the carotid artery to a higher risk of heart attack and stroke. Found in breast milk, testicles, semen.
That's deeply disturbing. What's the health link? Inflammation.
That seems to be a key connection. Microplastics are associated with increased inflammation throughout the body, And we know chronic inflammation is a driver for so many diseases, including cancer.
So what can we do? It feels like plastic is everywhere.
He offered some simple starting points, like try to avoid plastic cups, plates, cutlery. Choose food that isn't heavily wrapped in plastic if you can. Glass or stainless steel containers instead of plastic ones.
Okay, manageable steps. He also mentioned tea bags, even paper ones.
Yeah, that was surprising. Apparently the process used to seal many tea bags, even paper ones, can cause them to shed billions of micro and nanoplastic particles right into your hot water.
Billions from one tea bag.
Crazy, right? His suggestion was to consider loose leaf tea instead. And also be a bit wary of flavored teas. Check the ingredients, as artificial flavorings can sometimes involve plastic carriers.
Wow, okay. It's easy to feel a bit down hearing about all these potential threats. But Dr. Lee balances it out, right, with this idea of food as medicine.
Absolutely. And this is where the message becomes really empowering, I think. It's not just about dodging the bad stuff. It's about actively choosing foods that strengthen those health defenses. Proactive health.
Like that tea example he gave from his own research.
Exactly. He found that English breakfast tea, specifically Earl Grey, likely due to the fermentation process of the bergamot oil, was actually more potent in supporting healthy blood vessels in their lab tests than some other teas they assumed might be stronger.
That really shows you need the data, not just assumptions.
Totally. It highlights why the scientific investigation is so important.
He was also really enthusiastic about matcha and purple potatoes. What's special about them?
Well, matcha is unique because you consume the whole tea leaf, which is grown in the shade that changes its chemistry. So it's super concentrated in those beneficial polyphenols. Plus you get fiber, which is great for gut health, metabolism, inflammation. And lab studies showed it could kill breast cancer stem cells.
Stem cells?
Right?
And the purple potatoes.
Their vibrant color comes from anthocyanins. And studies, like one from Penn State he mentioned, found these anthocyanins could kill colon cancer stem cells in the lab.
He kept coming back to cancer stem cells. Why are they such a focus?
Because they're thought to be the cells that drive cancer growth and recurrence. They could resist conventional treatments like chemo and radiation sometimes, and they can just sit dormant and then cause a relapse later. So finding ways to target them specifically is a huge goal in cancer research and prevention.
Makes sense. Get rid of the root cause.
Pretty much.
He also talked about gut health. There was a specific bacterium.
Akkermansia muciniphila. Yeah, this is super interesting. It's about the connection between our gut microbiome and how well cancer treatments like immunotherapy work.
How so?
There's a study he discussed where cancer patients getting immunotherapy were divided into responders and non-responders. The responders, the ones the treatment worked well for, had significant amounts of Akkermansia in their gut. The non-responders didn't.
Wow. Just the presence of that one bug made a difference.
It seemed to be a key factor. And then in mouse studies, when they introduced Akkermansia to mice that weren't responding well, their response to the immunotherapy improved.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So can we get more Akkermansia? Can we eat for it?
Yes. And the foods he listed are actually pretty accessible. Pomegranate, the fruit, seeds, or juice. Cranberries fresh, dried, or juice. Concord grapes or juice.
Chili peppers.
Chili peppers. Interesting.
And also Chinese black vinegar, the kind you sometimes get with dumplings.
Huh. So specific foods feeding specific helpful gut bacteria? Amazing. What about trendy diets like keto? Did he weigh in on those? He did, briefly. His general take was that most of these highly restrictive trending diets are, difficult to stick with long term. They might offer short-term results for some things, but sustainability is key.
So find something you can actually live with.
Exactly. Find a way of eating that works for you, that you enjoy, and that is fundamentally healthy. He pointed to patterns like the Mediterranean diet or traditional Asian ways of eating as great examples: lots of plants, fresh ingredients, seasonal, and, importantly, delicious.
He also pulled an insight from Japan, hara-hachi-bu.
Right. The practice of stopping eating when you're about 80% full, it's about mindful eating, not overstuffing yourself.
Why is that so important?
Because consistently overeating, what he called caloric loading, really strains your metabolism. It forces your body to deal with excess fuel constantly, and that process can actually speed up cellular aging. Modesty in eating seems key for longevity.
That ties into the whole topic of body fat. He described fat itself as an organ, which was kind of a new framing for me.
Yeah, it is an organ. It has functions, cushioning, insulation, energy storage. But like any system, it can be overloaded. When we take in way more calories than we use, the body stores it as fat. That's the basic mechanism.
But he differentiated between types of fat.
Yes. There's the subcutaneous fat just under the skin, but the one he really flagged as dangerous is visceral fat. That's the fat deep inside your abdomen, packed around your organs.
And that's bad even if someone looks thin. Skinny fat.
Exactly. You can have a normal BMI but still carry a dangerous amount of this internal visceral fat. And it's metabolically active in a bad way. It promotes inflammation.
Is there good fat? He mentioned brown fat.
Yes. Brown fat is different. It's found around the neck, collarbones, shoulder blades, a bit down the spine. And it's metabolically active in a good way. It actually burns energy, generates heat thermogenesis, and it can burn that harmful white fat, including visceral fat.
How do you get more brown fat or activate it?
Cold exposure is one way shivering activates it, but certain foods can stimulate it too.
Interesting. Before we get to those foods, why exactly is the visceral fat so bad? Inflammation, you said.
Yeah, it's highly inflammatory. When you have too much of it packed in there, it doesn't get enough oxygen, it becomes hypoxic.
Oxygen-starved fat.
Right. And that hypoxic fat starts pumping out inflammatory signals that travel throughout your entire body. It creates this constant low-grade inflammatory environment.
And that links to cancer.
Directly. He said this inflammatory environment created by excess visceral fat is linked to an increased risk of at least 15 different types of cancer.
15? Wow. Like what?
Breast, colon, ovarian, lung, prostate, many of the common ones. He cited that study of Swedish women, again normal weight, but those with more visceral fat had a 3 times higher risk of developing breast cancer over 13 years.
That really drives home the point that health isn't just about the number on the scale.
Not at all. It's about what's happening inside.
Okay, so this all circles back to being proactive, right? Using food choices to support those defenses and maybe combat things like visceral fat. He gave examples like tomatoes and coffee.
Exactly. Every meal, every snack is an opportunity. He mentioned cooked tomatoes, like in sauce or paste. Eating 2 or 3 half-cup servings a week was linked to a 29% lower risk of prostate cancer.
Why cooked?
Cooking releases the lycopene, makes it easier for the body to absorb. And lycopene is anti-angiogenic, helps control that blood vessel growth.
And coffee. I know a lot of people will be happy to hear about coffee.
Yeah.
Oh.
He talked about maybe 3 to 4 cups a day. The polyphenols in coffee, like chlorogenic acid, are anti-inflammatory. And interestingly, coffee can also activate that beneficial brown fat, helping it burn the white visceral fat.
3 to 4 cups. Okay, what about fasting? That comes up a lot these days.
He framed it really naturally. We already fast every night while we sleep. So intermittent fasting can just be about extending that natural window slightly. Like maybe finish eating dinner 3 hours before you go to bed for, say, 8 hours, then wait an hour after waking up before you eat breakfast. Boom, that's a 12-hour fast right there.
Simple enough.
Or you could skip breakfast and push it to maybe 16 hours, the popular 1 in 68 model. The key thing he stressed, though, is not to then gorge yourself when you break the fast. Be mindful.
Right. Okay, let's shift to the brain. I was really struck by the connection he made between blood vessels angiogenesis again and dementia.
Me too. It makes so much sense when you think about it. The brain is incredibly metabolically active, needs a huge blood supply. He said there are 400 miles of blood vessels in the brain.
400 miles?
Yeah. So he explained dementia is kind of the general term for cognitive decline. Alzheimer's is one type. But vascular dementia, which is actually more common, is caused by problems with those blood vessels narrowing, blockages, poor blood flow.
So keeping brain blood vessels healthy is key for preventing that type of dementia.
Exactly. Maintaining healthy angiogenesis in the brain through diet and lifestyle is crucial for cognitive longevity.
Any foods that help specifically with brain blood vessels?
He mentioned dark chocolate. The flavanols help produce nitric oxide, which widens blood vessels. Beets, or beetroot, and spinach also boost nitric oxide. And nitric oxide doesn't just help blood flow, it helps recruit healthy stem cells too.
What about Alzheimer's specifically? Is that different?
It is somewhat different. In Alzheimer's, he explained, you might actually see more blood vessels in certain brain areas, but they're abnormal. They don't work properly, leading to poor perfusion. And critically, these abnormal vessels secrete a neurotoxin that kills brain cells and contributes to the plaque buildup associated with Alzheimer's.
So angiogenesis plays a role there too, just in a different dysfunctional way.
It seems so. It's complex, but the health of that vascular network is clearly vital.
Man, it all keeps coming back to this idea of food as medicine. It feels like such an old idea, but he's bringing all this modern science to it.
That's exactly it. He pointed out, before we had modern pharmaceuticals, what do we have? Diet, lifestyle, herbs. These were the original medicines. Now, science is letting us understand why they work, how they work at a molecular level.
So it's not instead of modern medicine, but alongside it.
Absolutely. He sees food as a critical tool that should be used right alongside drugs and other treatments, empowering people to participate in their own health.
What about supplements? Does he think they have a role?
His main message was, focus on food first. Get your nutrients from whole foods. But he does see a role for supplements to, as he put it, top off things you might not be getting enough of.
Like vitamin D or omega-3s?
Yeah, those are common examples he gave. Things that can be harder to get enough of consistently through diet alone for some people.
Did he mention taking any himself?
He did. He said he takes an Akkermansia probiotic, that beneficial gut bacteria we talked about. It's becoming available now as a supplement. He takes it for metabolic health, maybe reducing metabolic syndrome risk, and potentially lowering dementia risk down the line.
Interesting. Anything else?
He also mentioned taking Lactobacillus aridulae. It's another probiotic, sometimes available as a chewable tablet, which can have oral health benefits too. He takes it for reducing inflammation, building immunity, and apparently it can even promote social hormones like oxytocin.
Huh. Okay, so summing up a lot of this practical advice, if Dr. Lee had to pick, say, his top 5 favorite foods based on all the research, what would they be?
Okay, let's see. He grouped beverages together, coffee and tea, rich in polyphenols, activate brown fat, anti-angiogenic, that's 1.
Right.
2, tree nuts, good fiber, protein, healthy fats. Some have shown potential against cancer stem cells in the lab.
That's got it.
3, tomatoes, hydrating, source that lycopene for angiogenesis and prostate health, especially cooked. 4, berries, high fiber, again, lots of polyphenols, anti-inflammatory. Think blueberries, raspberries, strawberries.
Berries, okay. And number 5?
Leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard, nutrient powerhouses. Staple of those healthy Mediterranean and Asian diets he mentioned.
Coffee, tea, nuts, tomatoes, berries, greens. Pretty solid list.
Definitely. And they cover a lot of the defense systems he talks about.
And I guess his final big takeaway message is, don't make it a chore.
Exactly. His closing thought is always about loving your food to love your health. He's identified over 200 foods with these health-promoting properties in his books. The idea is to explore those, find the ones you genuinely enjoy, and build a sustainable, personalized way of eating around them. Not deprivation, but celebration.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. You know, listening to all this, the core message is just striking. Our bodies have these incredible built-in defenses.
Yeah, they really do.
And we actually have a lot of influence over how well they work through pretty straightforward choices we make every day, especially around food and lifestyle.
It's empowering.
Thinking about Dr. Lee's points, that those constant tiny battles against microscopic cancers inside us, the huge role of gut health, the surprising power of everyday foods like tea or tomatoes, how much stress and sleep matter, it definitely makes you look at your daily routine differently.
For sure.
So for you listening, what's maybe one small thing, 1 or 2 actionable steps that stood out? Maybe it's swapping out plastic containers, or making sure you get more fiber, or really prioritizing sleep tonight, or even just trying loose leaf tea instead of bagged.
Little changes can add up.
Definitely. And if you want to go deeper, Dr. Lai's books, Eat to Beat Disease and Eat to Beat Your Diet, and his YouTube channel are great resources.
Lots more detail there.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, inspired by all this. Given that our bodies are in this constant state of defense against unseen internal threats, how can we actively shift our mindset and our habits? Move from just passively going through the day to consciously, actively cultivating robust internal resilience?
That's a great question to ponder.
It really is. Thanks for diving deep with us today.